You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Are you and your partner lit up about the same things, or are you growing apart? How do you get fired up to make a big relationship commitment? And when is it time to pull the plug on your relationship? My wife, Alyson Lanier, is a relationship and intimacy coach with over 20 years of experience. Our previous interview has been downloaded more times than any other episode of The New Man. Today, she's going to tell us how she helps those couples who are sick of struggling but aren't clear about how to move forward.
Can't wait to embarrass you.
How are you going to embarrass me?
I'm going to tell the world that you're interviewing me in your underwear.
Are you saying you're not wearing your underwear?
I'm wearing clothes.
Oh. What's embarrassing about?
You started recording. I read.
Are you
All right, we're here.
Why do you think I'd be embarrassed? Why do you think I'd be embarrassed about wearing my underwear in an interview?
I don't think you would. I would just want to embarrass you.
You want to embarrass me?
It's fun when you're embarrassed.
You're gonna have to try harder.
You're endearing to me when you're embarrassed.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
You don't like the guy that's got it all together.
Not unless I get to see his goofy side.
We're talking about that guy who's wondering if his relationship's going down the shitter, if he's in a deal breaker, if he's on the wrong path. We're talking to the guy he loves personal growth. He's doing the work. He's reading the books. He's listening to the podcasts. He loves to learn, loves to apply this stuff in his life. And as a result, he's changing. He's growing. Means he's also going to experience his career and his relationships in a different way because he's growing and changing. We're talking about the guy who feels like he may be outgrowing his relationship, or he may be outgrowing his partner. He's simply just not the same person he was when they started together, so to speak. So he might be the guy that's getting into shape while she's the one who's on the couch eating ding dongs. Do you like ding dong? Is that you just like the word? You just like the word ding dong?
It's funny. Who eats ding dongs? Like even
Apparently
when they were popular, like what are you having? I'm having a ding dong. Like, what is that? What are they?
I'll get you a ding dong. He may be into personal growth or meditation, and she thinks he's just being weird. He may be wanting to have sex more or try new things in the bedroom, and she's okay with how things are. She'd rather be watching some TV show. He may be wanting to travel more, and she wants to focus on her career. He may be into doing something creative, and she wants to be more active in the church. He may be really driven, and she's not passionate about anything in particular, but she's smoking hot, and the sex is pretty good. So I don't know where that one came from, but
Excuse me.
Gosh, you gotta cut that out.
I have getting over a
Will you
cold.
Stop? Will you stop it? It's really nobody likes
Forgive
that.
us, audience. Forgive me, audience.
Bottom line, the fear is that if we don't get on the same page, if he's thinking this, if they don't get on the same page, then they're not going to be together. He's starting to think maybe we're not meant to be together anymore, and he's wondering, is this a deal breaker? So, if you haven't figured it out so far, I brought my wife Alyson back into the show today. She's a relationship and intimacy coach for over 20 years. You've been a professional in the field of psychology, counseling, and relationships. Look at you,
That's 20. Right.
You're only 26. How does that work?
It started when I was 6 years
old. But many of the clients that I work with end up spending some time with you, and they're working with you to step up their relationships and their sex lives. They're getting out. They want to get out of something mediocre or something that they're no longer really excited about, and they want to learn some practical, powerful ways to create what they want with their girlfriends, wives, and partners. Mm-hmm. And you can, if you're listening, you can learn more about Alyson by visiting AlysonLanier.com, and that's Alyson with ALYSON. AlysonLanier.com. Thanks for talking today, even though you got a cold and you're in your underwear.
I'm not in my underwear.
You're totally in your
Hello,
underwear.
Hello, thank you for having me, is what I want to say.
Well, I want to dive into this. Is something that we both run into a lot when we're talking with people, is that this guy is in this situation, and he's worried, like, oh no, I got into personal development. I'm on this growth path, and what does this mean? My relationship's over now. So We see this a lot. I've been there personally. I think I think there have been moments in our relationship where
when you were like, does this mean it's the end?
Well, I don't know if it got that far, but there's just times where I definitely feel more advanced and superior to you.
Are you listening, men?
Bottom line, I've been in this in other relationships where it felt like, something was off and I felt damned if I do, damned if I don't. I didn't like feeling trapped. I noticed that for me, I would start to pressure her like, oh, you need to be different. I've done this with you. Like you need I want you to change or you don't have to say it like that. But there's this thing of like either I don't say anything and nothing changes and that sucks, or I do pressure her and it creates conflict. So I mean, I'm just for you, like if the guy that's listening to this right now, if he relates to this and he's not on the same page with this gal, do you think it means that he's at the end of his relationship, or is it workable?
I think it's workable. I think I actually do think that there are some fundamental things to look at or to address to determine if it's workable or not.
Yeah.
But I don't ever think that it's terminal.
Okay. Well, let's zoom out for a second and let's actually take a look at what's going on in this guy's life, because typically he's on a growth path. What I see is that he's gotten himself on a growth path, which means he's naturally going to outgrow the things that he's got in his life to begin with. It's like you get into a growth thing, you're going to you grow your body, you're going to outgrow your shirt, you're going to outgrow these types of things. So, but you can also outgrow your career, you can outgrow your relationship. So the rest of his life can't stay the same without creating some kind of a squeeze. And this can be threatening to our partner, right?
Yes.
So if we're on a growth path and maybe they're not, this can be threatening. What does that look like?
Well, I think change is threatening.
Yeah.
I think people in general are pretty afraid of change. So if you're outgrowing, if you don't, and if we're talking specifically personal development, that's like personal development often involves interpersonal development. So
what is that? What is interpersonal?
Well, so I'm talking about like impact. So if I'm going to go learn a new way, let's say I'm going to go learn curiosity, because that's something that I know I bring to our interviews a lot. And we talk, you've interviewed Brian Decker and Kendra, and those guys have all talked about curiosity. And so just the concept of bringing something like curiosity into your way of relating to someone else, you're going to be curious with them. If you're a guy who's never been curious before, and then suddenly you're asking questions, and not just like, hey, where did you get your dress? But like, remember that thing that you told me about that you were really stressed out about at work? What was going on for you there? What was the thing you were afraid of? When they get really genuinely curious, it has impact.
Regardless of what it is, whether he's practicing curiosity or whatever, is that it can just be threatening. Change is threatening is what I'm getting from this. And that our partner can start to react to that. And it might feel like they don't support us, right? She might get to where she's complaining, or she's like, oh, you're doing that thing again. And it can hurt. It's like, hey, this is something that's really important to me. And we can feel like it's not just that my partner is disinterested. It's like they're actually threatened by it, which means they can kind of get nasty about it, or they at least can start to try to control us, or they can try to keep us from changing. They're threatened by that thing. Oh, you're doing that thing again? Or you'd rather do that thing than be with me? I've seen versions of that. So I just want to speak like I want to speak to the thing that's really underneath, which is there's a fear. There's a fear. My partner's changing, which means something's upsetting here. It's not cool. If you're on a growth path, we've got this choice between being on a growth path or in a comfort, associating with comfort versus growth. And that's the main thing I want to just help the guy see is like, if you've chosen to be on a growth path, you're going into places where there's uncertainty, where there's discomfort. You're challenging yourself and going through things. Even if it's just physical, you're challenging yourself in that way. It's uncomfortable. And if I've chosen to be comfortable, if I'm your partner, I've chosen to be comfortable. I don't like the shit that you're doing that's going to rock my boat, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's also part of life. So when we talk about, does this mean it's the end? I think that there's a big piece. That's what I said. Like there's some fundamental things to talk about to determine that question, the answer to that question. And what you're talking about around comfort versus growth is all pointing to like a shared mindset or shared outcome, shared desires.
What are we playing for here? Are we really on the
values.
same team?
Right.
Or are we competing against one another? Like who's gonna pull whom into this place and keep them there?
Yeah. And I mean, I think about values here. This is a place where I think about values.
That's it, because he really is answering the question, who am I really? Who am I really? He's changing. He's really stepping into that, beyond like, who am I beyond making a living or being a husband or being this and that. He's starting to answer some bigger questions about his values and his worldview. And I've seen guys I've been that guy where I've start to pressure that person. Like, I need you to be different. I need you to see things my way. I need you to step into my way of being so that I feel okay. So she might be threatened on one hand and he might be doing it in another way, like pressuring her to be like, hey, if you don't do this, I don't love you. It's like, start to send that message of you're not acceptable as you are.
Yeah, that's generally when we talk about people that are sort of defensive or condemning of change, that like in a partnership, if someone wants to do something new or start something new and the other partner is fearful or condemning or judgmental, it's usually coming from, often that I've found in the people that I've worked with, it comes from a place like that. It comes from a thing around like, wait, we had something, we've been doing fine. Or when we first met, or the last 10 years or 5 years or whatever it was, we didn't have a problem. And we both agreed, whether overtly or covertly, we agreed that the way things were going was okay. Mm-hmm. And so what's wrong?
Why you got to change things now?
Why you got to change things now? Or does this, there's like a presumption that something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't mean actually anything is wrong.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because it doesn't seem like anyone has to be the bad guy here. You might be doing things to each other, which are, you're being assholes to one another around this. But underneath it, what I'm getting is that there's really no need to demonize or villainize each other simply because one person's growing and the other person isn't. It doesn't mean somebody's being the bad guy here. Now, how you act about
how you
that,
behave is big deal, because that's where we get into those internal preferences. Like you decide. I remember I worked with someone a few years ago who decided he wanted to get into doing triathlons and Ironman stuff, and he was really into it. Mm-hmm. And his wife, in the meantime, was getting really into church activities and church stuff. He wasn't into the church. She wasn't into exercising and Ironman stuff. But what happened there was there was not a place where they were coming together saying, hey, let's talk about our shared outcome and our shared vision for partnership with our interests. And it was more like, well, she's not doing this and he's not doing that. And so then it became like a you like villainization, like right. You're this or you're not that, instead of, cool, we both have our interests and that's okay. And how can we support each other through that?
Yeah, it's like, I'm becoming a solid individual. You're a solid individual. Yeah. Do we need to freak out and blame the other person for that? Or can we say, all right, well, can we both step into being strong individuals and find a common ground for our relationship, how the relationship can serve one another? And for me, I just get into this place where people get into they're like, we have to do whatever we can for the relationship, but that doesn't mean they're going to be happy.
Yeah. And there's definitely a place. I mean, we want to watch what you're naming here is, I think we kind of get into like the psychobabble term is codependent. And so there is sort of a place where we can go where it's like, oh, but I'm doing this for us. And like you lose yourself in that. You lose your own center or your happiness or your own even personal goals or likes or whatever. And so
which will come back to haunt you at some point. You might be able to do it for a few years. And the relationship
too.
Yeah, it'll just
that's
toxic.
Nice guy syndrome stuff.
Yeah.
And in its purest form. So
I'm glad you let me overpower you.
It works for you, doesn't it?
It works.
Yeah. So, but I do want to talk about that. So, because we've been talking a little bit about like the comfort and growth piece, and like there are many people, and it's actually quite natural in our sort of fundamental systems to avoid discomfort. Like we want to move away from pain or suffering and towards pleasure and what feels good and what's comfortable. So there is kind of a natural pulse to there, but But we're talking about like, if I'm uncomfortable, something must be wrong. And then we're also talking about the person that wants to avoid discomfort at all costs. And the difference between that versus someone who is willing to basically martyr themselves in the name of the relationship, which I'm hearing you, that's what kind of we went to the other side, that codependent side of like, I'm just going to sacrifice all of me.
And there's some nobility in it. Like I'm doing it for her. I'm doing
Yeah.
this.
Don't
like,
you see how much I love you? Right. Cause I've had 7 kids and I'll just keep having more because I can't say no to you sexually or whatever. So, and I don't know what birth control is. But here's
I was gonna make a butt joke.
Okay.
But I didn't.
Let me just get to this point, please, because I'll forget it.
Okay.
So, what's best? What the whole thing around what's best for both of us, which is like the growth mindset or the growth attitude, which is what's best for each of us respectively, and both of us as a couple might push either or both of us or the relational side of our system into something really uncomfortable. But
Say that part again.
So what's best for both of us?
Like as individuals or as a couple?
So I'm looking at like A, B, and C. So A is me, B is you, and C is the relationship.
It's us.
So the us. So all of it could be any of those A, B, or C.
Mm-hmm.
So what's best? And often I think where we get into like somebody's into personal growth or change or whatever, and the other person's not, we're looking at the C equation. We're looking at the us side of it.
A is where is doing
A is
his
me,
thing.
B is you.
B's not
I'm
doing
doing my
their
thing, you're doing your thing. And then there's us.
Right.
And we're either ships in the night, or we don't ever talk about it, or we constantly butt heads about it.
Or we're looking in the past like we're not like how we used to be. Like we're trying to conserve or hold on to what we used to be instead of focusing on what we could be, where we're going,
right?
Who we're becoming.
And so but the growth mindset is that mindset of like what's understanding that what's best and trust. There's a huge piece around trust here, is that understanding what's best and trusting what's best might push us into something uncomfortable. It might push me into an uncomfortable place, or it might push you into an uncomfortable place.
And it doesn't mean it's wrong.
And it doesn't mean it's wrong. And it might be, but, and that's the difference is like the comfort, sort of like, oh, if it's wrong or if it hurts or if it's uncomfortable, if it's hard, I should stop.
Right.
Versus that growth, that growth mindset is like, you still have your eye on a greater, kind of like you have your eye on the prize. It's like you see something that's possible beyond the discomfort, beyond the change. And so you're willing to go into or lean into what's uncomfortable because you see the growth opportunity on the other side of it. So for example, you say a lot, everything you want is on the other side of an uncomfortable conversation. Right?
I think Gay Hendricks said that first, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, love you, Gay. So, but it's that concept. I love, or like in parenting, I think about parenting was, I love you too much to let you have lollipops every day. I know you as my 6-year-old child wants lollipops every day, but
Right.
I love you too much. I don't want your teeth to rot out of your head.
Right.
And so I see a bigger possibility there, and you're not going to like that. That's going to be uncomfortable. It's not something you want.
And most of us, like you said, have created our lives to avoid discomfort at any cost, and we've lost sight of this bigger thing of what is most important, which we can keep coming back to this idea of what's this shared desired outcome, which we'll get to in a minute. But if I'm in a relationship and I don't have an idea of what that shared desired outcome is, then it is about maintaining comfort day to day. And it's like, oh, what do I do to make sure I don't get into an argument? What do I do to make sure that things don't get uncomfortable or we don't have a weird conversation? Yeah. And that's how things just flatten out and get toxic, actually, after a while. It's either boring as hell or it's toxic. There's resentment.
Or distant.
Yeah. So it's helpful I'm starting to get why it's so important to have this thing of like, why are we together? Where's this headed?
Yeah.
What's this in service of for both of us? I want to feel fulfilled as an individual. I want that for you too. I'm not just here to, basically wait until I'm dead kind of thing and just maintain something or wish that we were still who we were 5, 6, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I think that I think that couples, a lot of couples get into this, they do get into these mindsets of like, great, all I have to do is get married. And then once I marry him, I'll never be threatened again. Or,
that's right, I'm done.
Or like once we're married and we have the house and we have the car and we have the kid and we have the dog and whatever it is, then we're done.
And then we lock it down. There's this thing of like, we're done. We're not moving anywhere. We're not growing anymore.
Yeah.
We're not developing anymore.
Yeah. And except that's where discomfort actually lives. That's where suffering actually lives.
I would say suffering, yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe not discomfort. It's where unconsciousness lives, but where suffering for sure lives. And so, and there's something that actually you and I do that I shared with a client not that long ago, and she was like, really, you do that? So I want to share it here because I didn't realize that it was kind of cool. Maybe it's worth sharing.
Okay.
And that is that basically every time, like, so when you and I got together, you'll have better memory than me, but like when you and I got together, we did this. Every time we moved, we did this. Every time we like wanted to decide what state or what part of the world we wanted to live in, or what before we had a kid, or that we would do this thing. And it was basically this process of sharing our vision. And I would go and I would write down on a piece of paper all the things that I was like a hell yes to, and all the things that, or was like a definite had to be part of my life. Mm-hmm. And then you did the same thing. I would have you go write your side. And then we would come together and we would share our visions of what we needed in a house, or what we wanted in a parenting, or what we had to have in the town that we lived in.
Right.
And that process is really, I think, a process that can be shared here in this topic, because it's the same idea. When we get into marriages, when we get into relationships, there is sort of this idea of like, I'm done, or I don't have to work. I know her. I know how she's going to react. I know how she thinks.
Yeah, things are just static.
And there really is some, the irony is like there's some truth to that. As if we want to go down the neurological path, like we do get into ruts and habits in our brains, and it is kind of all we see. We can get kind of tunnel vision if we're like habituated, but that doesn't mean that that's all there is.
It doesn't mean that's where we're going to feel fulfilled or where we're going to be thriving.
Yeah, but it might be where we're comfortable. So it's easy to just slip back to that. Right.
And the thing about this process of making that's an effort. You know, if I'm used to being comfortable, I don't want to make a fucking effort. I don't want to have to sit down and be like, yeah, what would excite me? I just want life to kind of figure it out for me. I want my partner to figure it out for me. I want my job to do it for me. I want my kid to do it for me. I'm pointing to that mindset where we go from being reactive to being proactive, where we take 100% responsibility for what it is that we want.
Yeah, that's not reactive. That's complacent.
Complacent. Okay, so there's this thing of like, no, I'm responsible. Like it's up to me to figure out what I want. And then the scary part is I go talk to my partner.
Yeah,
I go talk to my partner. Because that might not jive with where my partner is. That might not jive with who we were when we first got together. So I can see where, this is where we're heading into uncertainty. This is where we start to mix things up. But as you and I found out, like this is where we keep things fresh, and we keep the conversation fresh of, hey, here's what's exciting me now. What about you? I want to hear what's going on for you. And then how can we support one another in that?
Yeah, and that's coming from, I mean, when you say what you just said, you're automatically coming from a particular stance. And that stance is, I love you and I want you with me. I want you in my life. So there's another stance that you have sort of dabbled in here when you're giving examples of potential people out there. And that is the stance of villainizing the other, of like,
you're my problem, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, you're the reason why I'm not happy.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're not into this. Like
right.
Why couldn't you, or like, I can't be okay and I can't be happy if you're not doing this. And
right.
if you're not into this, like there's a certain perspective and a certain mindset, like a judgment that kind of befalls, and it pits one against the other.
Right.
Instead,
either I'm responsible for myself, or somehow you're responsible for my happiness.
Yeah, or you're the obstacle to my happiness.
Right.
And those are people, you know, when I have folks that talk like that to me, I don't go immediately to like, does this mean it's the end? But I definitely point that stance out.
Yeah, I imagine things shift a whole lot more whenever you have folks step. And this is what I do: is like you step into taking 100. Like, what if it's not up to them?
Right.
What are you waiting for permission for? What is it that you need this person to be different in order? And a lot of people are just using their partner as an excuse,
Totally,
or their circumstances as an excuse. And it's great. Like, I don't have to do anything risky as long as it's up to somebody else or it's somebody else's fault.
I'm actually reminded right now, as you say that, I'm reminded of a woman that I worked with not too long ago who has been married for, I don't know, 5 or 7 years, something like that, and just loves her partner, and was telling me that she wants and likes, like she feels like that she's not having as good of sex as she had in her former relationships, but she loves this partner. And
She'd say that. She'd be like, "Hey, you don't fuck me the way that all my other friends or my other boyfriends do."
I didn't ask her if that's what she said to her partner.
I really
and
like
even
you.
if I did, I wouldn't
That'd be
reveal
kinda
that
rough.
in this interview. It might be too like identifying.
I hate when women tell me that.
But no, she did want to. She wanted more kink. She wanted more kinky stuff, and
Like what? This is just for me.
Yeah,
Nobody else is going to hear this part.
And now for a commercial break by your local BDSM supplier. But there was a thing though around like, he's just not. He's not this. He's not that. He won't this. He won't that. I'm not getting enough. I'm not satisfied enough. And while it's true that she had her ideas of what she wanted, and we were not doing couples work, we were doing individuals work. So that question of taking it back to 100% responsibility for her, it was really interesting because there were times where I would help her get clear on what it was she wanted, and she didn't want to have to be the one to get clear. She wanted him to just
figure it out.
Yeah, to just figure it out.
Right.
And that's a big trap I think that we come into when
That's
it
a
comes
victim mentality. I mean, that's it. I don't take care of it.
Yeah, and for her there was a thing around like, I just want to receive and I just want to be devoured and all of that. But if she's with a man, and in this case she's with a man who's like basically terrified of anything kinky and like doesn't really want to do it. So there's a real
Like a ball in the mouth or like a leather mask.
I'll have to see if she'll have a
shit's
call
scary.
with you and you can find out.
Yeah.
So
I can get it.
yeah, but she wasn't even able to identify the specifics of that for herself.
Okay.
So how could she possibly invite him into something like that if he's scared? He doesn't even want to go down that road, let alone like it's all edgy for him.
Right.
So and then there's like a whole world of kink. So how does he even know how to get there without the partnership, without that joint effort, that co-creation, and that ability to say, let's figure this out together?
So I'm getting right now is that we can get into this place where we're not happy, we're blaming our partner, but we're also not taking responsibility for ourselves. We're not the one to say, hey, we're not the one to make the effort to say, what is it that I want?
Right.
And to own our preferences. It's okay to own our preferences. It's okay to say that, hey, this is who I am now. This is what I'm wanting. And this may be confronting for me.
And it should be confronting. I mean, if it's confronting for her to be seeing you doing this personal development, there's something going on for you.
Right.
So it's really important to check yourself. It's really important to
well, even if I'm a guy that's doing, into fitness, and my preferences have changed. Like, I want to be with a partner that values taking care of their bodies. I want to be with a partner that wants to be around for a long time and wants to have a healthy, long life. Right.
But you saying that, you're in touch with the what for, with the why.
Right. The possibility,
mm-hmm. or even your deeper why. For like, I hear as you say that, and I know that that's actually true for you around the health piece. You have your why is attached to existentialism. Like there's a whole thing around life and death for you. And so for you, it's like, I want to live a long life with the people that I love the most. And therefore I want you to live a long time because I don't want to lose you. Therefore I want you to be healthy. So there's a why. There's you checking in with yourself and getting clear on what's happening for you, with why you might say, hey honey, come check out this new gym with me.
And I get to own that. and then she gets to say, I want that too, or I don't want that too. It's not like the thing here that I want to help us clarify is that I can own what I want and she can own what she wants. And we may not be on the same page, but at least we're getting to a place where it's not the other person's job to figure it out for me or vice versa, or to be the thing. Like it's up to them somehow. Like it's up to me to specify what I want and bring it to the table.
Totally. And
I might get rejected there. We might have a problem there.
Yeah, totally.
But at least I'm not stuck in this what if one day she's got to figure it out kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's another piece too around values and preferences and like what's the outcome, because you and I, as an example, we have lots of differences. We have different like hobbies and interests, and even the way that we work out. There were years where, I mean, we're doing a workout presently more together, but for years, I mean, maybe forever since I've known you, we've done different stuff. You've done a certain type of running or cardio or weight training, and I've done yoga or Pilates, or like we've just done different things, and it's fine. It's not like you have to do weight training because that's you have to be a triathlete with me. You have to convert to, to be an Orthodox Jew. Like you have to do this.
Right.
So there's
or else.
Like you're either with me or you're against me, versus we have a shared vision. We have shared values. It's all the same mountain. We're going to take different paths there, but we recognize that we're on a path.
So we can have the similar values, but we can have different paths to get there.
Yeah.
And that may be more true. Instead of, oh my gosh, my partner and I aren't on the same page, it might just be, no, we're on the same page. We're just going to get there different ways.
Yeah.
And we just haven't talked about it. We haven't figured it out. So we're having pissing matches about how to get there instead of recognizing, no, we're both on the same team.
And that's why that's where that check yourself, why, what's going on, what is it that you really want, why do you want this from her, comes in. Because that's, I think, for me, at least the people that I talk to, I get curious there because I want to suss out, is there an underlying deep desire or need or concern, or is this just about control?
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes people just want permission to leave the other person.
Totally.
Yeah. All right, so you facilitate this kind of stuff with people. You'll bring one partner in, or even both people in. You'll have them on Skype and start to work through this. So this is hard to do on our own, but let's kind of outline this type of interaction. The first step is just, am I willing to have this honest conversation? Am I willing to go into this place instead of in this, like this malaise, this confusion, this fog that I've been in? So when you sit down with people, and what's that first step of just getting clarity?
Yeah, well, you named the whole piece around getting clarity. That is it. And it's not just one conversation. I just want to be really explicit there. It's a series of conversations. And anybody who thinks that they could just have one conversation with their partner and be done is the same person that thinks that once they get married, they're done. Right?
I can spend more time watching House of Cards than I can, working through this shit with my partner.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Think about your investment return. Right. So I help him or her, but I help them craft a series of conversations. And the very first step really is to clarify what they want and their deeper why.
I think that's the individual part. It's not like, oh, what do I want that we both want? I think that's where we get stuck is I got to want something she wants instead of let's just start with what excites me. And she goes off and figures out what would excite her.
Absolutely.
So we start on strong footing as individuals and then start to work together.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up that writing it down on paper. I mean, whether you're writing down your values or whether you're writing down a house that you plan to buy together or where you want to live or whatever, or this growth piece and outcome, the type of relational dynamic that you want, the values that you share, the mindsets that you hold. It's really helpful to very literally write it down on a piece of paper and ask your partner if she would do the same.
Yeah, I just want to say that sometimes when I talk to the guys, they'll give me the term like, I don't know if she's the girl to commit to. Can I commit to this girl? And I'm like, let's take her out of the equation just for a second. What's the vision you're committing to?
There you go.
What's the thing you want to create no matter what, whether it's with her or it's some other person.
Yeah, and that's the writing it down. I mean, that that's them getting clear on what it is they're wanting. That's that initial vision.
And the point for them is that, I can get excited about this.
Yeah, regardless.
What's not exciting is, I got to go leave these parts of me behind in order to make this work.
Oh yeah, that's a big trap.
That's a huge trap, right?
It's like a setup.
Or hopefully in a few years we'll get it
for demonization. Or
hopefully in a few years she'll be different, and I'll have the guts to speak up, or the future will have something different in store. So I'm like, no, what do you 100% would love to commit to today?
Yeah.
What's the thing that vision that you'd love to commit to? And I've just seen guys really step into their power there. Like, this is what I would commit to. This is what I'd be excited to commit to. And then it's about creating an invitation, right? So can I invite her into that? Like, what's her thing? And then I want to invite her into that. I just stole your thunder.
You totally just, this is like, you know what I do, so you can just tell people what I'm doing.
I think didn't I teach you all this stuff? Like when you were 6 years old, I taught you all
So then step 2, people, you would then invite.
Oh, that's a great idea. Invite. But
do you just eavesdrop all day?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so yeah, then you would. It is about creating invitation. And that's really that's one of the, aside from visualizing, coming to your partner for this kind of thing, this is the scariest, this is the thing that people often create as make an obstacle. And that is like, oh my God, now I actually have to sit down and talk with them.
Well, before we get there, there's a reason we use the word invitation, because it's not a demand.
That's right.
It's not an ultimatum.
That's right.
It's not you get on board or you're out the door.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right.
It's, I would love to do this with you.
That's right. And part of the clarification and getting a vision of what they want and getting their hell yes and what they're excited about is because I want their partner to experience their excitement. I want their partner to see how lit up they are and why, to hear that and to feel them, to feel so when they bring that invitation, it's not the or else.
Or the, like, this is what I think you want me to say.
Right.
Which is like, yeah, this would be great. No,
Right.
it's not. It's not what you really want.
Right.
That's what you think you should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So the invitation, the making it an invitation is a big deal. And that there's also, I mean, without getting too far on a tangent here, there's also a piece of when you make an invitation, you're clarifying that you are a yes to this particular path or this particular outcome or whatever, kind of regardless. There's sort of a thing around like, this is where I'm headed. I would love for you to join me.
Yeah.
And would you like to? I'm inviting you because I'm going.
Yeah, this is where I'm
happening.
headed. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is my life. This is what I want to create.
I'm a yes to.
Yeah.
And so that's really, that's probably one of the edgier, this is why these things become problems, because this stuff gets really scary and edgy and of like.
That's why people feel split too in their relationship, because they deep down they are committed to this.
Mm-hmm. Now, the third piece that I want to name here that's really crucial, and I think that this doesn't happen. I think that we go into control or managing or persuading or whatever that piece is, excusing ourselves, defending ourselves, validating ourselves. We don't. Step 3 after you invite is listen. Listen for the response. Give her time and space to respond.
Yeah, whatever she has to say is completely valid. Like, you don't get to argue with whether this is exciting for her.
That's right.
Or not. Like, can you just sit there and be curious and
That's
not
right.
like, oh wow, this thing is what would be exciting for her, and it might be threatening.
Right.
It might be threatening.
That's right. And for, I mean, at least a lot of the folks that I see it is a threat. I mean, change is scary, as we started this conversation, and so this piece around really listening for the response and really listen to what she's saying. What are you hearing? Are you hearing her fear? Are you hearing her curiosity? Are you hearing defensiveness? Are you hearing her being judgmental or making assumptions, creating stories that she might not actually have the answers to some of this stuff she's imagining? So once you really listen, and take notes if you need to, if she's a talker.
Well, she expressed what she's excited about?
Well, we're actually not there yet.
Okay.
So
I just want to check.
No, we're actually not there yet. We're right now we're just at the point of like him coming out.
Okay, so
That's
partner
basically
A
like
is stepping in.
Partner A is coming out.
Okay.
He's saying, here's what's going on for me. Here's what I'm into. Here's
Right.
what I love. Here's what I want more of.
Right.
Here's the life that I want to live with you. Here's what I want to invite you into. And so he's going to listen for her response, which also may be a reaction.
Oh yeah,
And
she
then
made shit a brick.
when I say she's really when I say she's really listened to her and what she's saying, whether it's defensiveness or fear or concern or whatever, the reason for that is because the thing that I would coach people into next is to get curious. Get curious. If she's defensive, what's happening? Why is she defensive?
This is why you need somebody there.
Well, yeah. I mean, you asked me what I help people with. So this is what I'm doing. This is like when you get to the point where you're here with somebody and like you're listening. Actually, the best thing to do, honestly, you guys, is to just, she doesn't even have to listen to the whole interview, but if you wanted to just invite her to listen to this particular part of the interview of how I invite people into conversations, she could just listen to this part. And if she's
might
like,
hear the kinky stuff too. That was pretty cool.
I have a feeling since this is a men's podcast. Well, yeah, maybe actually she might want to hear the kinky stuff.
She might
too.
want to hit him with a fucking cattle prod.
Dare I be sexist here? But yeah. So anyway, yeah, they
Listen to this.
Listen to this piece because then there's sort of a thing. I mean, that's the other. That's what I've trying to drop through this whole conversation is that this is a edgy, vulnerable, scary conversation, and yeah, doing it alone is difficult, and especially if we've never done it before, or if a couple of times that we've tried to do it, we feel like it's failed or whatever. So to have someone like me, a third party, come in and really support you through this process is really helpful. So the getting curious part is usually where I'm most active when I'm working with couples here or individuals even, is helping them. Basically teach curiosity.
And I get like everybody's right. You know, it's like he gets to be right for wanting what he wants. She gets to be right for having her reaction, like her emotional reaction. I'm not saying that it's okay to attack or you're an asshole for wanting that, but just like
she's allowed to be scared about it or freaked out or worried.
This is upsetting. This isn't the normal thing, right?
Sure.
So there's no bad guy here. It doesn't have to devolve into a battle about who's going to win. It's just, this is the truth.
And I mean, this is like the thing that I'm also not naming is that this can be, this does take some balls. Like you have to, because there will be the reactivity. There will be the thing of like, I'm imagining the woman, I worked with a couple in Florida, and like every time he brought something new that he wanted, she basically like rolled her eyes and sighed. And it was like, it was just another stressor for her. And that was really painful for him. And so there is sort of a thing around like, yeah, there are ways that we're not tactful with each other, that we're not full of care in our reactions versus responses and such. So yeah, this isn't always easy, and it's helpful to have help. And so anyway,
he's being curious with her.
So he gets,
what's it like for
curious,
her to have this?
and really my thing, like the main thing that I usually address, because these are the biggest obstacles, is to address the fears and concerns. Mm-hmm. So what are her fears? What are her concerns? Right. Or what are his fears and concerns about inviting her into this, and then her based on her reactivity or whatever.
And I would say if he goes through this process of naming what he's excited about, and he doesn't see her in that picture, that's really good information right there.
That's really good information. And that does happen.
Yeah. And to be willing to own that what really excites him, the thing he wants to commit to, doesn't include her. Yeah. It's time to get real.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah. And then there's a piece around, that's when you get to listen again and ask ask if she's a yes. What's her version of this? That's where you get into that, come back to that larger vision and larger view of say, I want to have a shared outcome for you. Is this,
also I want to support you. Like what's the thing that would be exciting for you? It's not just a one-sided thing.
No, it's totally, but there is sort of a thing. Initially, I agree with what you're saying, but initially there is a thing around like, are you even on board with this? And it's not necessarily, are you on board with me becoming an Iron Man or me converting to Catholicism or whatever it is, even though that's a big question, are you on board with it in some of these cases?
Which is different
more than
than,
others.
can I have permission to do that?
It's very different than can I have a permission? It's because it has to do with impact, right? And how this is going to impact the we.
I want to do this, and you matter to me, is what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah. And
this is really important to me, and I care about you. I know this is going to impact you. I want to hear from you.
And so what I mean by like, check yourself and can you be okay with her version of her yes to this is that she might not want to become a triathlete with you, or she might not want to do authentic world amp stuff or read David Data with you or whatever the thing is. She might not want to do that, but she might have a version that she's still a yes to that still contributes and gets you both to that shared
or just
desired
the fact that you might
outcome.
be gone more, like you might be spending less time with the family or whatever. Like, can she be like, yeah, I want this for you, and I get that it might mean that you spend less time with me or the family, but
right.
It may also mean that if you're going to spend time with us, it'll be higher quality time,
and that might need to be a request from her too.
Right.
You know, that's where the impact shows up, because if he's working harder,
I think that's usually it, is that they want to be able to do their thing and not get shit for it. That somehow it's hurting the relationship. I hear that a lot. It's just like, yeah, she gets it that this is important to me, and it doesn't mean that I don't love her. I don't care about my family if I want to go do X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
I agree with you. And I think that, I mean, I'm sure I know that I have couples and individuals certainly that say that. But I also think that there is a real quality of that check yourself. Like, do you want your partner to do this with you? I mean, there really is like,
it's one thing to to have her okay to go do an understanding, but like, no, I want you to be with me. I want you to do this with me.
Like I want to organize it in that. It's like there's a part of me that wants to organize this. Like, okay, there's the one of you that like villainizes her, and then there's the dude that, or there's the one that villainizes. Then there's one that like uses her for permission, and then there's one that's like clear on what he wants and actually wants her with him, wants her to. And then there's the one that wants her with him, but wants her to do exactly what he's doing. And so it's like there are all these different iterations of it. But the thing that I think is really sexy and powerful is when you're clear that you do want this partner in your life and you want to have shared outcomes, shared values and all that, that you say that. Like there's beyond the invitation of, hey, I'm into this and I want to invite you into this. There's a thing around like, I want you. I want
you there.
Yeah, I want you there. I want you, like I choose you. And it doesn't mean you have to be at every race or you have to be at every group therapy session that I want to be in.
Or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, right. Or on every retreat. But I would love for you to come to this retreat because this retreat is the one that I'm most excited about to do with you. Or something like that. Like there's a thing where she's being chosen and women love that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Well, I like that. The distinction between like, I'm coming to her like she's my mommy and asking for permission versus I'm doing this and I want you there. I want you to be there. Not like, hey, is it okay if I do this? Like that there's a huge shift in that energy there.
Totally.
Okay. All right. So at what point do we get to hear what I notice you want to, getting a little hot in here. I noticed
you turn the fan on.
It's kind of like I almost planned that it would get hot in here and you'd want to.
I'm just curious if you can keep the interview going if I unbutton my balls.
Yeah. I'll like keep the interview deal on. You want to press pause?
I'm hot.
Yeah, you
like
are.
temperature hot.
Oh yeah. It's okay with me if you want to take it off.
Can you seriously turn the fan on?
I don't think it works. I think it's broken. I think it's blue. So.
Wow.
All right, I'll turn it off.
I'm glad you don't see women in person.
So at some point in this conversation, we get to hear from her. Like, what's exciting for her? What's the thing that she wants to create? What would be her hell yes? What's the thing that she's committed to? And it's an invitation again to get out if she's in this kind of comfort mindset of like, I just want things to be like they were, or I don't want things to change. There's a couple of scenarios that basically come up here, which is you figure out that you don't want the same things. You don't have the same vision.
Yeah, and actually, yes to that. But even before you skip, I want to come back to this process that I talk about around listening for her reaction and getting curious. Because what you said is, I want things to be the way they were. That's an opportunity to hear what she's saying and get curious. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What are you referring to? What were the experiences, the feelings, the things that you saw and heard from me? What was our intimacy like? What was our life like? What is it that you want to get back to?
So it's not something that's necessarily in the past, but it's something that maybe we could create.
Absolutely. Because she might be saying, I just really loved it when we spent every Friday night having sex, or I really loved it when you seemed like you would looked at me more than you looked at your phone, and you're on this new technological meditation thing, and you're always on your phone, and so I want things to be the way they were. It might have nothing to do with the thing that you're actually interested in doing. She might be fine with that if she knew.
So she may not be stuck in the past. She's trying to find ways to.
She might. That's why get curious is so important about the fears and concerns, because it's likely has to do with the connection. Most people get freaked out if they're going to lose connection with someone they love, or if like distance gets created, or they're going to lose their connection. That's where the fear and concern shows up.
And I would say that, in any given interaction, we're either increasing that connection or we're diminishing it in some way. And that what I've noticed is a lot of guys, if they're unwilling to have these difficult conversations, that's you're diminishing connection, because we feel it. We feel that something's up. Yeah. And so we're like, oh, well, I can't say this thing. We're focused on the content. Like the content of what we would say is the thing that would diminish it. It's not. It's our behavior of checking out or avoiding that diminishes connection. It's like something's up and we're not talking about it. That's what hurts trust.
Yeah.
And that's what hurts the connection. I'd much rather just have somebody be straight with me and be like, look, we got to talk about this and get it done. And I might feel some pain in the moment, but now I'm like, okay, well, at least I'm connected. I understand what's going on for you.
Yeah, and it might feel like pulling teeth. You totally reminded me of a guy that I worked with in Florida who every time he really wanted more depth of connection. And every time he would tell his wife that, he would say, I really want to talk with you. I really want to have some authentic relating, basically was what he was asking for. And she would be like, what? What do you mean? Like, nothing's wrong. Like, what? Like, there was just sort of this like, what? I'm fine. Everything's fine. Like, she just really didn't want to talk. She didn't know even how to articulate what he was wanting. She didn't know how to articulate what he was wanting from her. And so it felt like pulling teeth for him.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that it's over. It doesn't mean that that's where it stops. That's often where it starts. That you just need help.
Okay. Yeah, so that comes back to these scenarios. We do this work and we get curious, and we with the help, right? We facilitate this stuff and we get it all on the table so that we really understand. Here's the thing. Here's the desired outcome that I want. Here's the thing that I want to co-create with you. And I'm understanding what you want to co-create. And we can see if there's anything that overlaps there.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing that overlaps, then we might see, hey, it's time to move on. And I want what's best for you in your life, which means I get out of the way, and vice versa. I don't want to feel like you're in my life and we're kind of pulling at each other, and neither of us are going to be happy. Or we might realize, yes, I want that too, and I'm just scared.
Right.
I'm scared of A, B, or C.
Often the case.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's more about like, oh, I have peace of mind knowing that you want the same things that I do, and now it's just a matter of how. We've got some things to learn. We've got some experiments to try. We've got some uncertainty to face, and some things that are uncomfortable. But at least we can do that together.
Yeah.
And have that shared reality. And the other part is like, it's easy to say this stuff, and it's another thing to back it up with action.
Sure,
we can be partners. We know this in work, right? Where people can say, yeah, we're going to do this, but then they don't back it up with action.
Yeah.
So there's another part of this of, yes, I'm glad that we're on the same page, but then there's also a commitment to like, yeah, and I'm here to act.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing this with you.
And that's again where we come back to that comfort versus growth. And when you don't really get growth without some level of discomfort and upset internally. Like there's just gonna be this upset and discomfort. That's just where growth lives. And so
and it doesn't have to be terrifying either. It's just
and you don't have to be like always like wound worshiping where you're like always in the trenches, doing your thing with each other. But really, I mean, I think about like people that like, oh, it's hard and I don't really want to do that. And every time I try to do that, I get uncomfortable. So I don't want to do it. That's where you can get into that. Like, but you said you were on board and you're not doing anything. And so that's where that where mistrust can show up, and that's where that question of like, wait, is she my partner or not? Like, is she on board? Is she
really going to back it up?
Is she really going to back this up or not?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I like what you said, that we don't have to be into the exact things, but it's
really
about
important.
It's about having these kind of foundational big values that are aligned.
Yeah, big
and
time.
that having this shared desired outcome, have it be explicit, and to recognize that it's not set in stone. It's not like, well, we had that conversation in 2017, so that's it.
For sure.
Or we got married 10 years ago and that's it. It's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, here's where we are now. What's changed for you? What would you add to this conversation? What should we change? So it's an ongoing co-creative process, which takes effort. And if I want to just be comfortable and be asleep at the wheel, I'm going to stick my head in the sand.
Yeah, but you think about the whole being comfortable and sticking your head in the sand. Like there's such isolation there. There's such isolation there. So if we're talking about the fact that change is inevitable, we always outgrow things. Hopefully we're outgrowing things. Hopefully we're growing and changing. And we want to steer away from the mindset of like, ooh, I've outgrown that partner or that person. Ooh, I'm better than them, or whatever that is. If you want to steer away from that, then you're going to steer towards intimacy and connection. And that's actually where things get really exciting. It's like, this is happening for me. I don't even know what's on the other side of it, but I'm feeling this and I'm wanting that, and I'm creating these new connections internally and externally, and I want to share this with you. I want you to get to know me here. I'm getting to know me here in ways that I've never known myself, and I want you with me.
I like that, because I've known some people that will use the "I've outgrown you" thing as an excuse to leave.
Totally, yeah. It's like, such a great way to be like, I'm better than you, or
well, it's also a way I don't really have to get uncomfortable. It's actually more comfortable for me to leave a relationship than it is to deepen it.
Yeah, it is, and that's why it's like a longer conversation with somebody to determine if this is it or not.
Yeah. So we can have our differences, and we don't need to attack one another for having those differences. We don't need to make the other person a villain. You and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things.
That's right.
Even though I'm better and more just
more
feeling
caveman,
just more
idiotic, or
but we do have a strong foundation. We both share some very common core beliefs around love and the big picture and mutual respect.
Yeah. The thing that's been coming to me this whole interview that I keep coming back to, I haven't said, but you're saying this now, that I have to say, and that is marriage vows. So we took a very different slant on our marriage vows. We did not subscribe to do you take this person in sickness and health? I didn't even know what that shit meant.
Yeah, because I'm out of here. You get sick, I'm fucking gone.
Actually, you joke about that all the time.
You got a cold. I
started
packing
and
things
my
up.
marriage is threatened.
I started packing your shit up. I was like,
that's right. It's true. That's right.
She's
See ya. I'm going to the grocery
a,
store. I might not ever be back.
She's off to a hospice now. She's got this stomach flu.
Ladies.
Who's next?
It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah. No, it's all right, honey. We had a good run. We did. We took very different vows.
So back to that. But our vow, we sat with each other. We sat with ourselves. We chose vows that were values based and that were shared outcome based. For example, one of our vows was that we would always stay in contact, that we would always push through whatever resistances that we had, whatever shit that came up between us, whatever was going on, in order to tell the truth on ourselves, with each other, to each other. And that means that if we uphold those vows, that we're going to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But that also means that we're also going to stay deeply connected. Even if we chose to part, it would be such ironically, such a connected parting. We would really
that's what I got, is that it was in service of the growth, like that we vowed to one another to stay on our growth path,
mm-hmm.
and that to support one another in that growth path. And even if that meant that at some point we grew apart, that we were there to be. The deeper vow was that I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, you're here to be with me, and so you cut that shit off.
Right. That was part of our community,
Yeah.
like having community in our lives, and that looks like if you want to go out or travel with your bros, then I support you in that. I'm a fucking cheerleader for you for that. So it's not like, but I wanted you to spend that free time with me. And no,
I'm glad I don't get whiny when you leave.
Okay, let's get real. You get so fucking mopey and whiny. You love me so much. I love it.
I'm cutting that
For
out.
weeks, you're like
cutting that out. All right, so moving on. I mentioned earlier that you work with men and women and couples through this process regularly, and that you not just to kind of help them have a conversation and go, wow, isn't that cool? But there's like, here's some skills, here's some things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about how you work with people, or how you prefer to work with people. I know that you work with them on Skype so that you can see them and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of our technology these days, is that I do work with folks Skype, FaceTime on the phone, and I work with people all over the world. I love to work with people in person. So I always like to invite people into intensives where they're flying to me. And luckily we live in a beautiful beach town. It's a great destination for people to come see and hang out and have a little retreat.
So people will do work with you on Skype video, and then also come and work with you in person in these intensives.
Yep. They come and do some intensive work. And that's a great thing for couples, if they're...
It just works fast that way. You can go deep and you go fast.
Yeah, it works fast, but there's also sort of like a, okay, we're going to take care of this.
Yeah,
like no more sort of tiddling
this
around.
isn't Tuesday
about
at 5
this.
o'clock.
That's right. We get, and all we have to do is outlast her for 50 more minutes. And then
that's bullshit.
We can sort of pretend like we're doing our work, but not really doing it. And it's a wonderful opportunity for couples that really want to create change in the moment. They really want to try different things in the moment, and they need assistance on the spot. So that's where the in-person stuff is really helpful.
Very good. Alyson Lanier, you can learn more about her at AlysonLanier.com, AlysonLanier, AlysonLanier.com.
Thanks so much. Cutie. Sexy. Underwear having man.
All right, that's enough.
If these interviews are helping you, then please visit The New Man on iTunes and leave us a positive review so others can discover the show more easily. Thanks for listening.